Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Jawad. I will be teaching Park Studies. Can everybody hear me? Okay, so you guys are basically welcome to ask any questions regarding the subject so far. This is a Q&A session, so feel free to ask any queries that you might have regarding Park Studies as of now. So this is a Q&A session, so all of you can ask away any questions regarding the subject. So please feel free to ask away. So here we have a question, how to do source-based questions. Well, as you might all know that the first question usually is regarding an insert or a source that is given within the examination paper. So the first thing is they will always provide you with an insert and the questions will be driven from those inserts. Now, the first basic step is to basically read the passage very carefully and understand what exactly is it trying to highlight from that picture within that text. So for example, if you have, like, let's say a picture where they've shown a colonial background where
food कर ले
they've dressed up a person in, let's say, the traditional colonial garb, and they have shown different people riding a horse with other people, and you can see that the white man is slightly larger than the other people. So the question might be, okay, what do you think this shows? So in this kind of question, one must understand that basically they're trying to make sure that you understand what kind of colonial mindset was there in, let's say, the late 19th century with regards to the British people. So if any source that is given to you is highlighting different aspects of that timeline, you must make sure that the answer is related to that particular timeline. Do not talk about irrelevant stuff that is not in the picture or that is not in the passage. You don't have to go into detail about it because it's usually just 4 marks. So all you have to do is highlight the main points within that picture and you will get marks out of that. I hope that that answers your question. Anything else? Okay, so time management is the key because you have 5 questions in total and you have 1 hour 30 minutes. Of these 5 questions that are available, you get to choose 3 questions. Now, the thing is with time management that make sure that you have the understanding as to what each section is asking. So the first question usually is about pre-partition to colonial times. This is basically during the Mughal era. The second question usually is about after the War of Independence. The third would usually ask about post World War One, World War Two. Fourth question will usually be about pre-partition. And the last section is usually about current affairs as to what is happening at present, which usually ends till 1999 to 2003 probably now. So basically, to manage this, you need to understand that all these questions require a certain amount of time. So the best part to do is that make sure that you have perfected either of these 5 completely. make sure that this is how you're going to tackle the questions, that you've completely mastered the pre-partition era, so you're going to do this question first. It won't take you that long, so you spend about 10 to 15 minutes on this particular question. Similarly with the second one, if you think you've perfected that, same amount of time, maximum 10 to 15 minutes. So the same thing goes for every question. If you have a good chunk of 10 to 15 minutes, if you prepared well enough, you know what to write and you know how to write and you know what questions that you are going to face and how you're going to tackle them, then you will basically be spending about maximum of 10 to 15 or maybe even 20 minutes. So that's roughly 30 minutes per question, three questions out of five to choose from. So you are spending ample amount of time of the 1 hour 30 minutes given on one question each. So you have this division. So just make sure that you spend roughly 15 to 20 minutes in trying to understand, 10 to 15 minutes in trying to figure out what exactly you're going to do, and the next 10 to 15 minutes in writing those parts. So that's a total of 30 minutes. And if you spend 30 minutes on each question, barring that there are three questions that you have to write, so you will be easily able to attempt the paper on time. The next question is how to make your 14 marks question perfect. Now, this is a very important question in the sense that a lot of students have this problem, because the 14-mark question is usually written in such a way that, for example, was the War of Independence the only cause for British distrust of the natives? Now, this is just a rough example of a kind of question. It is the important thing here is to know the wordings of the question. They will always ask you as if the cause that they've given is the only cause for a certain thing to happen. So in this case, was the War of Independence the only cause for British distrust of the natives? Obviously, it wasn't. There were other things at play, and that is where your answer comes in. You have to talk about other elements within that particular time frame as to what were the other things. So, for example, culture could be one thing, language, religion, economics. So all of these things led to war, and all of that basically led to British distrust. So now, if you have this order in play, like you've highlighted all of these major points. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 total elements, right? So if you divide that into, let's say, 2.5 or 3.5 marks, that is how you'll get 14 marks. So if you divide all of these elements carefully, you'll be able to understand as to what exactly you have to write. You have to elaborate the question carefully. You have to understand how did the event start, what were the main issues that were surrounding that area. You have to give a good background and then have a good middle part. It's kind of like writing a long essay where your introduction, middle, and end all have to be connected with all the time that that the question has given you. I hope that answers this part. Okay. And for exam tricks, well, like I just mentioned, all of the questions are basically coming in from different eras of the Pakistani history. So, like I previously mentioned, the first will be pre-partition, Mughal, then so on and so forth. So make sure that you understand that what exactly each question is asking you to do. If you have broken that from the examiner's point of view and you know exactly what is the examiner asking, you'll be able to answer a lot better and way more fluently, and that will help you in your exam. And as far as the long answers are concerned, make sure that you properly arrange the answers in a way that it has a proper trajectory to it. It needs to be very cohesive, and it needs to highlight all the major points. Okay, so this next one comes in with what can we do if you forget facts or dates? Now, in history, the problem is that facts and dates are a major flaw in getting marks. So let's say if you've forgotten that the Battle of Plessy was in 1757, you've forgotten this particular date. What you can do is, as a safe measure or a safety measure, you can talk about that this Battle of Plessy, happened. A very general but correct statement would be in the late 18th century. That way, the examiner will know that you actually have correctly identified the era without knowing the exact date. So you will not lose marks for it because you have correctly identified this particular element within the question. So make sure to do that. Make sure to remember the era in which different things happened. Let's say the World War One, aka the Khilafat movement, happened in the early to middle 20th century. The exact date for that is around 1917 to 1919. So if you say this, that mid 20th century or early 20th century, you will not lose marks for it because you've identified the era correctly. So make sure to do that. That's an easy escape from actually remembering all the dates, because it's very natural that there's so many dates to remember that people do end up forgetting some, and it's fine if you can just mention the correct era. So you will not be penalized for it. Any other questions? I hope this all of this is making sense so far. Okay, there's just one last question for paper one, then we go into paper two. What can we do if you forget a fact or a date? If you forget any other fact, like 20,000 people in. Okay. Now again, the estimation point is key. You don't have to remember each thing to the letter. Make sure that you know that about, let's say, you can say thousands or millions or hundreds. These general figures, as long as they are correctly aligned with the number that you've just mentioned, you will not be penalized for any wrong. It won't be considered as a wrong answer. So let's say that if you're saying that 20,000 people were killed in the massacre, another way to write would be tens of thousands of Indians lost their lives at the Jallianwala Bagh incident. So this is something that you can do. Now, moving on to paper two. Now, paper two is about the geography of Pakistan, basically, right? So over there, the same thing applies, that each question comes from a different section within that particular book that you guys are reading right now. Now, with paper two, what you have to do is understand that each question, so the first part of every question is about what's on the map. Make sure that you remember every important point within the map. So the cities, latitudes, important farms, dams, forests, all of these elements come in various parts in paper 2 in various questions. So usually the first question is about the topography of Pakistan. So that will be basically focusing on where are the mountainous ranges, what kind of plains exist in Pakistan, who does Pakistan share its border with, where does Pakistan lie as far as the longitude or the latitude is concerned, where is the equator. All of these questions come in question number 1. So you need to make sure that the section 1 that you have particularly mastered the art of that in general. Now, with please, now in geography, it's a little bit more concise in the sense that you really don't have to elaborate a lot more. So let's say if a question comes that give advantages of the Grand Trunk Road in contrast to the motorway. Now, if a question like this comes and it's of 4 marks, what you basically have to do is divide the answer in a proper manner. So if you're talking about the Grand Trunk Road or the GT Road as it's called, and just give good examples as to what kind of proper advantages is there for the trade, communication, domestic transport, economy. So these are just 4 marks. Now, if a comparison is given between advantages and disadvantages, and it's of 4 marks, then yes, you do only need to mention 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages. But make sure that you give valued answers, as in like they need to be solid answers in the sense that don't give generic responses. For example, if somebody is talking about the road, don't give an advantage that the road is made of asphalt and the other road is made of bricks, so that's why the one with the asphalt has more cars on it. That's a very generic answer. You will not get marks for it. If you want to talk about advantages, talk about something that is very tangible and solid in the sense that if a road is being constructed and that's made of asphalt, you are actually being able to connect far-flung areas in a more efficient and quick manner. Okay, now again, the same theory is devised for a 6 mark question. A 6 mark question is usually a lot more detailed. So with that in mind, you will obviously get questions which are basically in relation to two different things. For example, let's say if you're talking about the cotton industry. Now, in that, there'll be 2 elements. So the first will be talking about load shedding, just an example, load shedding and labor. Now, what are the things that lead to load shedding and what are the things that lead to mismanagement of labor? Now, this is a 6 mark question in which you have to identify 3 points from here and 3 points from the lack of labor. Now, if you manage to do that correctly, you will get a full quota of 6 marks.
But how?
Okay, so Now, with let's say we give this generic example a question statement. So it's asking about whether the cottage, the cotton industry, whether the cotton industry suffers due to load shedding or a lack of trained workforce. Now, you need to understand that the answer lies somewhere in between, that it's a mix match of both the things, that the cotton industry suffers from load shedding as well as lack of trained workforce. Now you need to make sure that this answer is basically well written and well related in each relation. For example, now here, let's say, why does it suffer because of load shedding? Because there is less work, uh, orders cannot meet their deadline, and working conditions are poor. So these are 3 points. Now with labor, you're talking about there is no vocational training, workers are not satisfied, and those who are working work longer shifts. Now you need to combine these points in a cohesive paragraphical form to make sure that you get 6 marks. I hope that clears the question. Anything else with paper 2? And by the way, guys, just to let you know, there is a core topic revision live class from 21st to the 27th of April, just like these. But instead of Q&A, there will be core topic revision and past paper practice. Uh, and unlike this, the price for that is 4,000 rupees only, and class will happen 7 days a week, 40 minutes each day. So interested, all of you who are interested can WhatsApp or call on the following number. Yes. So there is a live session going to happen from the 21st to the 27th, which will be dealing with the core topics. Like one of the questions have just come, like what topics should we focus on? So the whole idea of this crash course is that with past papers, we will be talking about what are the major or core topics that one should focus on before the exam. Now, and those of you who are interested, the contact number is in front, and this is the price for the online course, and it's for 7 days a week, live sessions just like these ones. And on part of which chapters we should concentrate more, that is entirely dependent on how do you want to take your examination. For example, if you think what are in each part of the two sections, which are your core strengths. For example, if you think that you're good at, so for example, if you think you're good at in the paper 2 section, if you're good at the topography, trade, economy part of it, just focus on those chapters more. Anything that you can easily write on is a first step towards learning different sections. And with history, if you think that you're good with early history, pre-partition history, post-colonial history, or colonial history, then focus on those chapters more, because then you'll be able to understand and write questions that are coming with those regards. So these are some of the things that we've basically talked about as to what goes in the first section with the history, like how to attempt 14-mark questions, what to write and how to write, And with geography, what kind of questions come, what are the paper, what does the examiner basically focuses on as far as questions are concerned. So for now, these are the main points, and if anybody would like to take this up on a regular basis, the classes are from the 21st to the 27th. If there's any final query that is left or is unanswered, please ask. Any last questions, any comments? So for the 6 mark question, all you have to do is make sure that you have 3 proper facts, and then evaluate your answer from these 3 facts. In history, a 7 mark question follows the same theme. In history, the 7 mark question follows the same theme of a paper 2 6 mark question. You have to make sure that you have proper, well rehearsed facts with you that you can elaborate on. So let's say if they've asked you to give brief reasons as to why did the War of Independence happen, so you can talk about different points. Let's say the grease cartridges, British imperialism, and and subjugation of the native. Yes, if you highlight these 3 reasons and elaborate them, the important thing is elaboration of these 3 points. If you highlight these 3 major points and then elaborate them in a proper, authentic manner, you will get 7 marks for that particular question. Okay, guys, so this is it for today. I hope this was valuable for you, and I hope to see you guys on the 21st for a crash course session, which will be starting on the 21st and will go on till the 27th. So please feel free to contact this number to register for the live session classes. Thank you. And please visit our website. You can get all the courses on .com. So, okay.